Human breaks galactic law, gets the alien queen's 3 daughters pregnant. The night was silent on the alien moon of Zereth Prime. Dark clouds moved slowly across the red sky, glowing from the reflection of 2 suns dying far away. The ground was silver and alive, shifting like metal dust under each step. And through that cold beauty walked a single human. Captain Ryan Cole. His ship had crashed 3 hours ago, leaving smoke trails across the alien wasteland. He was bleeding from his arm, his oxygen running low, and his radio full of static. But even in that loneliness, his eyes searched the horizon with hope. Ryan was not a soldier anymore. He was an explorer, a scientist, sent to find life forms beyond human space. He never expected to land in the territory of the most feared species in the galaxy, the Zereth Empire. Their queen, Mirakesh, was known as the Mother of Fire. No one who entered her space ever returned alive. As Ryan climbed a ridge of dark stone, his scanner blinked. 3 life signals close, moving fast, before he could react. A flash of blue light struck the ground beside him. He fell to his knees, blinded by the energy blast. When his vision cleared, he saw them, 3 tall, elegant beings standing in a half-circle around him. Their skin shimmered with silver scales, their eyes bright like molten gold. Each carried a weapon that hummed softly. Alive with alien energy, Ryan froze. He raised his hands slowly, trying to show peace. "Wait. I'm not your enemy," he said, his voice echoing in the alien air. The 3 looked at each other, whispering in a language that sounded like wind and thunder. Then the tallest stepped forward, her face calm but curious. Her name would later be known as Princess Illyra, the eldest daughter of the queen. "You speak," she said softly. Her accent strange but beautiful. Ryan nodded. "Yes, I'm human. I come from Earth." At the sound of that word, human, all 3 alien women exchanged a look of surprise. Humans were myths beyond their border. Creatures said to be too emotional, too fragile, too unpredictable. Another of the princesses, Selene, pointed her weapon closer. "Why are you here?" she demanded. "You have entered sacred ground." Ryan took a slow breath. "My ship was damaged. I didn't mean to trespass." He showed his scanner, still glowing weakly. "I was looking for life, the youngest one." Vara tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Her eyes were soft, almost kind. She lowered her weapon slightly. "He doesn't look dangerous," she whispered. But the moment was broken when the sky roared. A massive sound, the thunder of a Zereth patrol ship. It was the Queen's guardians, searching for the princesses. Ryan turned to run, but Illyra grabbed his arm. "Stay quiet," she said. Together, they hid behind the ruins of an old alien structure. The air was electric with fear. The ship passed overhead, scanning, its red lights sweeping across the ground like fire. Ryan's heart pounded. He could feel the warmth of Illyra's skin, the faint shimmer of her armor. For a moment, human and alien shared the same silence. When the ship finally moved away, Ryan exhaled in relief. "You saved me," he said quietly. Illyra didn't answer, but her eyes softened. Something about the human's gratitude touched her, something unfamiliar. Selene frowned. "We must not be seen with him," she said. Vara shook her head. "But he would have died. And he saved us too. He warned us before the patrol came." The 3 sisters began to argue in whispers. Ryan could not understand their words, but he understood the emotion. Fear, confusion, curiosity. He knew he was standing in the middle of something forbidden. The air between them was alive with tension, and yet, beneath it all, there was something else, something fragile and strange. A connection neither side had expected. Hours later, as the twin suns set, the princesses took him to a hidden valley where energy crystals glowed under the soil. It was their secret place, untouched by the Queen's rule. Ryan sat near a fire, eating dried rations, while the three sisters watched him like children watching a story unfold. He told them about Earth, oceans, skies, rain, music, laughter, things they could barely imagine. And when he spoke of love, of how humans could care even for those who hurt them, the princesses fell silent. Elira's golden eyes dimmed, her voice soft. "Your kind loves without reason?" Ryan smiled. "Yes, sometimes that's what saves us." For a long time, no one spoke. The stars began to rise above them, and the sound of alien wind filled the night. Vara leaned closer. "If the Queen finds you here, she will destroy you." Ryan looked up at the stars. "Then I'll make sure she never finds out." None of them knew that fate was already moving, that their meeting would ignite a storm across galaxies. A storm born not from hatred, but from something far more dangerous. Something even a queen could not control. And as the fire burned low, the three daughters of Mirakesh looked at the human who came from the sky. And for the first time, they saw not a trespasser, but a beginning. A beginning that would soon shake empires and rewrite destiny itself. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear the next part, don't forget to subscribe to the channel HFY Sci-Fi, where humanity's courage meets the stars. In the heart of the Zirith Empire, beneath a sea of burning clouds, stood the Crimson Palace. It was not built from stone or metal, but from living crystal, glowing like fire trapped in glass. Every wall pulsed with energy, the heartbeat of a civilization born in war and ruled by one will. The will of Queen Mirakesh. She sat upon her throne of flame, her crown of molten gold resting against her dark-scaled skin. Her presence could silence armies. Her gaze could melt courage, and that day, the throne room trembled with her fury. Her voice cut through the hall like thunder. "A human," she hissed, her words echoing against the living walls. "A filthy, fragile human has touched my daughters." The generals around her bowed low, their armor humming from the heat of her anger. None dared to look up, none dared to breathe too loudly. The Queen's tail lashed the floor, cracking it open, sending sparks into the air. Her royal seer, a pale creature with eyes of glass, stepped forward, holding a glowing shard. Inside it shimmered images. Ryan Cole, standing with her daughters beneath alien stars. The Queen's claws clenched, breaking the edge of her throne. "He defiled my bloodline," she said, her voice shaking the air. "He will burn, but in the shadows near the throne." A voice whispered. It was High Commander Threx, her most loyal warlord. My queen, perhaps it was not his doing. The human may have deceived them. The Queen's gaze turned toward him, a slow, deadly movement. "Do you question me, Threx?" She growled. Threx bowed until his head touched the floor. "Never, my queen." The Queen rose from her throne, her aura like a storm made of fire. "Bring me the human. Bring me my daughters. And bring me their corpses if they resist." The order spread across the empire like wildfire. Warships lifted from their nests. Hunters were armed, and drones filled the skies. Every corner of Zirith Prime echoed with the sound of engines and war drums. To the Queen, this was not revenge, it was justice. No one touched her blood and lived far across the stars. Ryan sat beside the princesses in their hidden valley. He could feel something heavy in the air, a pressure, a dread, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Elira stared at the horizon, her eyes glowing faintly. She felt it too, the pull of her mother's rage calling across the ether. "She knows," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Our mother knows what happened." Ryan's heart tightened. "Then we have to leave," he said. "Now," Celine shook her head. "You don't understand. No one escapes her wrath. Not even her own daughters. Lara's hands trembled. She will destroy everything. Even our people. Ryan looked between them, his mind racing. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. I didn't plan any of this. Alira turned to him, her golden eyes filled with both fear and something deeper. I know, she said softly, but it no longer matters. What is done cannot be undone. Above them, the night sky lit up with red streaks. Dozens of Zereth warships entering orbit. The Queen's fleet had arrived. The ground trembled as distant explosions echoed across the horizon. Ryan grabbed his small pack. We can't stay here, he said. Alira hesitated, then nodded. There's a tunnel beneath the valley. It leads to the ancient ruins of the first ones. We can hide there. They moved quickly, the crystals beneath their feet glowing with every step. Behind them, the first dropships descended, releasing troops in black armor. Each carried the Queen's mark. A burning sun. Ryan's pulse thundered. Every shadow could be death, every sound a soldier. But as they ran into the tunnels, he caught one last glimpse of the sky, and he saw something that made his blood freeze. A shape descending from the clouds, larger than any ship. A throne of fire and light, carried by 10 engines of plasma. Upon it stood the Queen herself, her wings spread wide, her face carved in fury. She had come personally. The tunnels were ancient and deep, their walls covered in strange carvings, the history of the Zereth people before the Queen's rule. Alira touched the walls, whispering in her language. These were built by the ancients, long before our empire. Before the wars, Ryan's voice was low. Will it keep us safe? She didn't answer, and that silence told him everything. They stopped at a chamber lit by glowing blue roots that grew from the ceiling. Ryan sat down, exhausted, his body trembling from fear and exhaustion. The 3 princesses looked at him with mixed emotions, guilt, confusion, curiosity, and something that looked like trust. Vara spoke first. Why didn't you run away from us when you had the chance? Ryan looked up, his eyes calm. Because running never solved anything. He smiled faintly. And I think, maybe you don't want me to run either. Alira turned away, her voice cold. You don't understand what my mother is capable of. Ryan's tone softened. Then help me understand. Celine stepped forward, her eyes dark. She's not just a ruler. She's a god to our people. She commands storms. She bends fire and light. And she never forgives. Ryan stared into the dim glow. So what happens now? Alira answered without turning. Now we hide. And pray she doesn't find us, but far above them. On the surface, the Queen had already begun her hunt. Her soldiers spread across the valley, searching every shadow, every cave. She could smell the faint trace of human blood in the air. Her voice echoed across the land like a curse. Find them. My daughters have forgotten who they are. But I will remind them. The ground trembled with her fury. Even the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if afraid to look away, deep underground. Ryan felt the vibration of her voice through the stone. The air turned hot, his breath short. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, if this is the end, I'll face it like a human. The 3 princesses looked at him, confused by his courage, moved by his words. And somewhere far above, the Queen paused, as if something in the universe had whispered back to her. A voice she didn't expect, the voice of humanity. The hunt had begun. But what none of them knew was that destiny had already chosen its side, and the galaxy itself was about to witness a story it would never forget. The tunnels grew colder as they descended deeper into the ancient ruins. Strange lights moved along the walls, not torches, not fire, but something alive, like veins of glowing metal pulsing softly. Ryan's footsteps echoed against the stone as he followed Alira and her sisters through the darkness. Behind them, The roars of the Queen's soldiers faded into a distant hum. For the moment, they were safe. But Ryan knew safety was an illusion. The air inside the ruins felt heavy, thick with memories. Symbols of forgotten gods shimmered faintly on the walls. Every corner whispered of the past, a civilization that lived before the Zirith Empire. Before the Queen herself, Illyra stopped at an enormous gate made of translucent crystal. Her voice was quiet, filled with awe. "This place is forbidden to all Zirith, even to royal blood," she said. Ryan looked at her, confused. "Then how do you know the way?" Illyra hesitated. "Because I dreamed of it. Many times, before I even met you." The gate opened with a sound like breathing. Inside was a vast chamber, circular and glowing. At the center floated a massive sphere of light, pulsing with soft rhythm. Like a beating heart, Ryan stepped closer. Drawn to it as if it was calling his name, his fingers brushed the air around it, and the sphere responded, glowing brighter, faster, until the room filled with warmth and energy. The princesses gasped as ancient runes flared to life all around them. Lines of power ran from the walls to the ceiling, forming symbols none of them understood. Ryan turned, his body trembling, his skin glowing faintly with blue light. Seleni's voice broke the silence. What is happening to you?" Ryan didn't answer, because he didn't know. Pain shot through him like lightning, and he fell to his knees, clutching his head. Images flashed in his mind: earth, war, fire. Soldiers screaming under a red sky. He saw scientists in white suits. A child floating in a glass chamber, his eyes glowing with the same blue light. And then he remembered. He wasn't just human. He was the result of Project Genesis, a forgotten experiment from Earth's darkest time, when humanity nearly destroyed itself in nuclear wars. The last scientists created him, a human enhanced with a gene of adaptation. His body could merge with foreign DNA, understand it, evolve with it. He was meant to be a survivor, the bridge between humanity and whatever came next. Ryan gasped for air, his voice trembling. "It's me," he whispered. "That's why this happened. That's why your people reacted to me like this." Illyra knelt beside him, confusion in her golden eyes. "What do you mean?" He looked up at her, his expression full of fear and wonder. "My blood isn't normal. It can adapt. It can connect. It can create something new." Seleni's eyes widened. "You mean?" "That's why." Ryan nodded slowly. "That's why your bodies accepted me. Why your children are growing. Why your mother cannot destroy me." For a long time, no one spoke. Only the hum of the ancient chamber filled the air. Illyra stepped closer to the glowing sphere, her hand trembling. "What are you then?" She whispered. "A weapon?" Ryan shook his head weakly. "No, not a weapon. Something else. Something that was supposed to give humans a chance to survive in any world. To live where no one else could." He looked at the floating heart of light, his voice soft. "But maybe it's more than survival now." The light began to shift, showing visions in the air. The Queen's face appeared cold, furious, but uncertain. Behind her, stars burned and galaxies trembled. Ryan's voice dropped. "She's connected to this, isn't she?" Illyra's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" Ryan pointed toward the sphere. "This energy. It's calling her. She feels it. That's why she's coming here herself." Vara, the youngest, touched his shoulder. "But why can't she kill you?" Ryan took a slow breath. "Because the same energy that made me is inside her bloodline too." The sisters froze. Illyra whispered. "That's impossible." Ryan looked at her sadly. "Maybe not. Maybe your kind didn't evolve alone. Maybe your ancestors came from the same origin as humans." The revelation hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. Illyra backed away, her voice shaking. "You mean we're connected?" Ryan nodded. Somewhere deep in the past, our species were one, separated by time, evolution, and war, but the same spark still burns in both of us. Celine stared at him in disbelief. If that's true, the Queen will never allow it to be known. Ryan's eyes hardened. That's why she wants me dead, not because of what I did, but because of what I represent, far above them. The Queen stood in the middle of the ruined valley, her soldiers surrounding her. She could feel the pulse of the ancient energy below, her claws clenched. The ground cracking under her feet, inside her mind. She heard whispers, old voices from before her reign. They spoke of light, creation, unity, and something she had long forgotten, peace for a brief moment. She saw a vision of a human child looking back at her through the stars. It had his eyes and her strength. The Queen roared in rage, tearing the image apart. No, she growled. I will not allow the blood of Zirith to be tainted. But deep within her heart, something trembled, fear, and something worse, doubt. Her warlord Threx approached. My Queen. The readings below show massive energy surges. She turned sharply. Then burn everything if my daughters stand with the human. They are traitors. Threx hesitated. Your Majesty. If you destroy the ruins, the energy field may. Her voice cut through him like a blade. Do it. The ground began to shake violently, explosions echoing through the tunnels. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Blue light flickered. Ryan grabbed Alira's hand, pulling her toward the deeper chamber. Run! He shouted, his voice echoing in the collapsing cave. They ran through the falling stone, the glowing heart of the ruins pulsing faster, brighter, behind them. Flames erupted as the Queen's army unleashed plasma fire. Alira stumbled, nearly falling, but Ryan caught her for a moment. Their eyes met, human and alien, and in that look, both understood that what was happening was bigger than love, bigger than fear. It was the birth of something new, something forbidden. As they ran into the darkness, the chamber exploded behind them. Light and energy merging into a single blinding flash. The old world was dying, but a new one was being born. And somewhere in that light, the Queen felt the pulse of life, the lives of her unborn grandchildren carrying her power. And his humanity, her roar echoed across the galaxy, a sound of rage and sorrow that shook the stars themselves. The universe would never be the same again. The explosion tore through the ruins like the heartbeat of a dying world. Blue fire surged upward, splitting mountains, melting crystal towers, turning the valley into a crater of light. Ryan and the three princesses ran through the collapsing tunnels, the walls breathing heat and smoke. The sound of destruction followed them, roaring, alive, unstoppable. Every step felt like running through the heart of a dying star. At last, they burst into the open night. Gasping for air, the sky burned. Red above them as the Queen's fleet descended like a storm of metal dragons. Dozens of warships cut across the clouds, firing plasma beams that turned the ground into rivers of glass. Ryan shielded his eyes, his breath heavy. We can't fight this, he shouted over the roar. Alira grabbed his arm. There's an old transport chamber near the ridge. If we can reach it, it will take us to orbit. Celine turned sharply, scanning the horizon. There, she pointed toward a distant pillar of light, glowing through the smoke. Without a word, they ran, their bodies moving through ash and fire, hunted by a sky full of death. Behind them, the Queen stood upon her burning throne ship, her wings of flame spreading wide, her eyes locked on the fleeing figures far below. He runs, she said softly, her voice cold. He thinks he can escape me. Threx bowed low beside her. My Queen, our forces have surrounded the area. He will not get far. The Queen's gaze hardened. No, Commander, he will not, but I want him alive. I want him to look into my eyes when I erase his soul. Ryan and the princesses reached the ridge. Panting, the ground trembling under the weight of explosions, the ancient transport stood there, half buried in rock. An old machine left by civilizations long dead, it hummed faintly, powered by something beyond time. Ryan looked at it with desperate hope. Will it work? Elira placed her hand on a glowing panel, and the machine responded, light spreading across its surface. It will take us to the outer rings, she said. To the old satellite colonies, we can hide there. Celine turned to her. Mother's fleet will follow. You know she never gives up. Elira's voice trembled. Then we keep running. They stepped inside, the door sealing behind them with a hiss of ancient air. As the transport activated, Ryan looked out the window one last time. The valley was gone, replaced by fire and chaos. He saw the Queen's ship rise above the flames. Glowing like a god of war, her voice echoed faintly through the static of his communicator. Human, you will not survive this. Ryan closed his eyes, whispering. We'll see. The transport shuddered, rising through the clouds. Light streaked past the windows as it broke through the atmosphere, the planet shrinking below them. For the first time, they saw the stars again, wide, endless, and alive. But there was no peace waiting for them there. Above the planet, the Queen's fleet waited, hundreds of warships forming a wall of light. Their weapons glowed, ready to fire. Celine's voice trembled. We'll never get through, Ryan's mind raced. There has to be a way. A blind spot, anything. Elira closed her eyes, her voice quiet. There is one path. The Rift Gate. Ryan frowned. What's that? The Rift Gate is forbidden, Celine said quickly. It leads through unstable space. No ship has ever returned from it. Ryan's eyes hardened. Then it's perfect. Before they could argue, he pushed the controls. Setting course for the rift, the transport turned sharply, engines screaming. As the Queen's fleet opened fire, beams of light tore through space. Exploding around them, shaking the ship violently, Bara screamed, clinging to Ryan's arm. We can't make it. He gritted his teeth. We'll make it or die trying. The stars blurred as the transport entered the asteroid field near the rift. Massive rocks spinning through the void, each one glowing with plasma trails as they collided. The Queen's ships followed, fast, disciplined, deadly. But something strange began to happen. The ship's sensors flickered, showing impossible readings. Space itself twisted ahead of them, bending and curling like liquid glass. Color shifted, reality itself trembling. Elira's voice was low, filled with awe. The rift? It's alive. Ryan's hands gripped the controls. Then let's hope it's in a good mood. The Queen's fleet fired again, one beam hitting the ship's tail. Flames erupted, alarms screamed, and the cabin filled with smoke. Ryan coughed, trying to keep the ship steady. Elira moved beside him, placing her glowing hands on the control panel. Energy flowed from her fingertips into the system, stabilizing it. Her power merged with his human will and alien energy, and the ship responded, glowing brighter, faster. Together, they dove into the rift. Behind them, the Queen's ship stopped at the edge of the distortion. Her generals waited for her command. Shall we follow, my Queen? Threx asked. The Queen's eyes narrowed as she stared into the swirling vortex of colors and light. Her instincts screamed that this was no ordinary space. It was the heart of something ancient, the same energy she had felt in the ruins, the same pulse as the one she carried in her blood. Her claws tightened. No, she said coldly. Let them run. Let them think they are free. She turned, her expression unreadable. The rift will not spare them. But if it does, I will find them, even beyond the edge of the universe. Her ship turned slowly, disappearing into the clouds of debris. Behind her, the rift closed with a thunderous echo, sealing the chase in silence. Inside the rift, the world around Ryan and the princesses changed. There was no up, no down, no time, only color and sound. Shapes moved through the void, vast shadows of forgotten beings watching silently. The ship's systems flickered, showing impossible data, stars that never existed, echoes of voices long dead. Ryan looked out the window, his heart pounding. What is this place? Elira whispered. A wound in the universe. A place where creation and destruction meet. The energy around them began to merge with the ship, flowing into the walls. Ryan's skin glowed faintly again, his veins pulsing with blue light. He could feel the power, the same energy that once built the universe itself. Celine stared at him, her voice shaking. It's reacting to you. Ryan took a deep breath. Then maybe it's trying to show us something. The light outside brightened, and for a moment, they saw visions. A galaxy reborn, humans and Zereth standing together, children with golden eyes and human smiles. A new beginning, born from chaos. And then, everything went dark. Hours later, the transport drifted out of the rift. They emerged into a quiet, forgotten part of space, cold, vast, and silent. Ahead of them floated a broken station orbiting a dead world. Ryan exhaled slowly. We made it, Elira nodded weakly. For now, behind them, far away, the Queen stood before her throne, staring into the dark space where they vanished. Her voice was soft, trembling with something she had not felt in centuries. You carry my blood. Human, but you will never escape my reach. She turned her gaze toward the stars, her eyes burning. Wherever you go, I will find you. And in the silence of the galaxy, the hunt continued, no longer for vengeance alone, but for something deeper, something neither human nor alien could yet understand. The beginning of a war that could end both species, or unite them forever. Time passed slowly after the rift. Days bled into nights that never truly ended. Ryan and the three princesses lived aboard the broken station that circled a dead gray world. The place was silent, forgotten, left from wars older than memory. Its metal corridors whispered when the wind of space brushed against it. And in that emptiness, life began again. Elira, Celine, and Vara each carried within them something impossible. Half human, half Cirith children, growing faster than any doctor could explain. Their bodies glowed faintly under the cold light of the stars. Ryan spent his days repairing the generators and finding food from old supply pods. His nights he spent watching over them, listening to their soft breathing. He had seen battlefields and monsters, but nothing had ever frightened him like this new kind of hope. One night, the silence broke. A sound echoed through the station, a low hum that wasn't mechanical. Elira clutched her stomach, gasping as blue light flared under her skin. Celine and Vara cried out too, the same glow running through their veins. Ryan ran to them, panic in his eyes. What's happening? Elira's voice trembled. It's time. The walls of the station vibrated. The lights flickering, Ryan gathered blankets, water, anything he could find. He didn't know alien medicine, but he knew courage. Hours passed, the air filled with light and sound. And when it was over, when the glow finally dimmed, 3 small figures lay in their mother's arms. They were beautiful. Their skin shimmered softly like starlight, their eyes bright with both warmth and fire. Tiny symbols of energy pulsed across their foreheads, the mark of Zerith, but their smiles, their fragile breathing, their gentle hands, those were human. Ryan knelt beside them, his throat tight. They're alive, he whispered. They're perfect. Elira looked at him, tears in her golden eyes. They are not just ours, Ryan. They belong to both worlds. Days turned into weeks. The children grew fast, learning to walk before their first orbit around the dead planet. When they laughed, light rippled through the air like waves of music. When they cried, the station systems reacted, lights dimming, metal bending slightly as if responding to their emotion. Vara called them starborn, saying they carried the energy of the rift inside their blood. But far away, the queen felt it too. Deep within her palace, she woke from restless dreams. Her heartbeat matching the pulse of the stars. She saw flashes of 3 small faces, their laughter echoing in her mind like a memory she couldn't erase. Her advisors watched her in silence as she rose from her throne. Trembling, "They are alive," she whispered. "My blood calls to me," Threx bowed. "Shall we begin the search?" The queen's eyes blazed. Yes, no more hiding. Across the galaxy. The hunt began again. Scouts vanished in the outer rings. Probes sent into the rift never returned, and yet every disappearance only drew her closer. For each time one of the children laughed, a signal pulsed through the fabric of space. The queen followed that heartbeat, guided by something older than hate, instinct, meanwhile. Ryan had noticed the same pulses on his scanners. He sat in the dark control room, staring at the glowing lines that appeared every few hours. "They're coming," he whispered. Alira stood beside him, holding one of the children. Her expression calm but fearful. Celine clenched her fists. "We can fight," Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. We protect them first." He worked through the night, connecting old engines, charging shields that had not been used in centuries. The station came alive again, a ghost of a weapon humming in silence. Ryan looked at the tiny faces sleeping in the cradle of light. "I won't let them take you," he said softly. Outside, space shimmered. A ripple of energy spread across the void, a storm unlike any known to science. From that storm merged the Queen's warfleet, hundreds of ships, each one glowing red like burning eyes. At their center, the Queen's throne ship moved forward slowly, proud and silent. Her voice carried across the void on open frequencies. "Human, you cannot hide forever." Ryan heard her through the speakers. The sound cold as ice. He took a deep breath. "Then I won't hide." He activated the defense grid, and the dead station came alive with blue light. Beams of energy stretched out, forming a protective shield around the planet. Celine's eyes widened. "You can't fight her army alone." Ryan's voice was firm. "I'm not fighting for me." He looked toward the children. "I'm fighting for them." The first attack began, a rain of plasma fire striking the shields. The old metal screamed, the walls shook. Alira held the children close, whispering prayers in her language. Ryan gritted his teeth, pressing controls, rerouting power. Every shot lit the sky like a sunrise made of fire. Then something happened. The children woke, their eyes glowing brighter than ever. They cried out, not in fear, but in instinct. And the station responded. Energy burst outward from their bodies, merging with the shields, strengthening them. The Queen's fleet staggered under the shockwave, several ships losing power. In her throne ship, the Queen rose, her eyes wide for the first time in centuries. "What is this power?" she whispered. Threx looked at the readings, panic in his voice. "It comes from them, my queen." From the children. The Queen's claws dug into her throne. They should not exist, but the universe did not listen. The children's energy spread across the system, awakening machines, bringing life to the dead planet below. Rivers of light formed across its surface, turning darkness into beauty. Ryan looked through the window, awe in his eyes. "They're changing everything," he said quietly. Alira smiled through tears. "Maybe this is what was meant to be," Celine whispered. "And maybe the Queen will never allow it." Far above, the Queen stared at the newborn world glowing below her fleet. Her heart burned with hatred and fear, because in that light she saw the truth she could no longer deny. The future was no longer hers to control. It belonged to those 3 tiny beings who carried both fire and compassion in their blood. Her voice broke into a whisper. "Children of 2 worlds." The battle paused. The fleets drifted in silence, watching the impossible. For the first time in the history of both species, war and wonder existed side by side, and in that fragile balance, destiny waited, ready to choose who would rise and who would fall. The queen turned away, her voice cold again. "Prepare my landing craft." "I will go myself." Threx hesitated. "My queen." "That world is unstable." She cut him off. "So is my patience." Below, Ryan looked up at the descending lights. He could feel her coming, the mother of fire, the ruler of empires. And he knew the next moment would decide everything. Between war and peace, between survival and extinction, between love and the end of worlds. The queen was coming, and this time, she wasn't just hunting a man. She was coming to face her own blood. The sky above the dead world burned red as the queen's throne ship descended. Its engines roared like ancient gods, shaking the mountains to dust. Waves of heat swept across the barren plains, turning sand into glass. Ryan watched from the shattered window of the station, his jaw tight, his eyes full of storm. Elira stood beside him, her arms wrapped around the children, their golden eyes wide with fear and wonder. "They're here," Ryan whispered. Selene loaded the old plasma rifles they had salvaged from wreckage. Her voice cold. "Then we fight," Ryan shook his head slowly. "No, not this time." Elira looked at him, confused. "Then what?" He turned toward the children, his voice soft but steady. "We show her what she's afraid of. Not war, but what comes after it. Outside." The queen stepped down from her ship, her armor glowing like molten stone. Her soldiers surrounded her in perfect formation, their weapons drawn, but she raised one hand, stopping them. "I will face him myself," she said, her voice echoing across the valley like thunder. Ryan walked out from the broken station, the air shimmering around him. The three princesses followed, the children in their arms, glowing faintly like stars trying to be born. The queen's eyes locked onto him, filled with fury and something deeper, confusion. "You dare stand before me after what you've done?" Her voice trembled the earth. Ryan didn't flinch. "I didn't come to fight you." Mirakesh. At the sound of her name, her soldiers gasped. No one had spoken the queen's true name in centuries. The queen's eyes narrowed. "You think your words will save you?" Ryan stepped forward, slow, fearless. "No. But maybe they'll save them." He gestured toward the children. Their light pulsing softly, the queen froze, her breath catching for the briefest second. Her mind reached out through the air, and she felt them, their hearts beating with her own rhythm, carrying her essence mixed with something alien yet beautiful. Human warmth, for the first time in her reign. She hesitated, her voice broke to a whisper. "What are they?" Elira stepped forward, her eyes wet. "They are yours." "Mother." The queen turned sharply toward her daughters, her anger twisting with disbelief. "You betrayed our blood, our law." "Everything," Vara trembled, holding her child closer. "We only followed what you forgot. Mercy." The queen's tail lashed the ground, sending a wave of fire through the dust. Ryan stood firm as the flames curled around him, his body glowing faintly with the same blue energy from the rift. The queen stared, her voice shaking. "You're not human anymore." Ryan looked up at her, his eyes soft. "Maybe I never was. Maybe I was always meant to be something between, for a long time." There was silence. Only the soft sound of the children's breathing filled the air. The queen's rage faltered as her gaze fell upon them again. One of the children reached out, tiny fingers glowing. The queen hesitated, then slowly knelt, her armor cooling, the flames around her fading. The child touched her cheek, and the fire in her eyes turned to light. Memories flooded her, not of war, not of conquest, but of a life before crowns and blood, when she had once known what it felt like to love. Her soldiers watched in silence as their queen wept. Tears of molten gold hit the scorched ground. Turning it to crystal, she whispered softly, "Perhaps I was wrong." Ryan stepped closer, his voice low. "You weren't wrong to protect your people. You were wrong to forget they were alive." The queen looked up at him, her eyes filled with sorrow and awe. "You've changed everything," she said. Ryan shook his head. "No, they did." He nodded toward the children, now standing between them, half light, half shadow, symbols of both worlds. And in that moment, something ancient inside the queen broke, the walls she had built over centuries of rage and loss. She rose slowly, turning to her army. Her voice carried across the silent battlefield. "No more war," she said. "The age of fire ends tonight." And as the stars glowed brighter above, for the first time in generations, the Zirith Empire laid down its weapons. The battlefield was silent. Smoke drifted across the plains like ghosts of a dying past. The queen stood tall, her armor cracked and dim, her flame fading into soft embers. Before her, Ryan, the princesses, and the three children stood surrounded by the wreckage of two worlds, human courage and alien pride. And in that quiet, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The queen looked at her soldiers, thousands of them, still kneeling, unsure, afraid to lift their eyes. For centuries, they had followed her without question. Her word had been law, her anger divine, her mercy extinct. But now, as the newborn light of her grandchildren shimmered across the ruins, even her armies began to tremble with something unfamiliar. Hope. Ryan stood before her, his body weak, burns across his skin from the energy that had erupted during the final blast. He should have fallen, but the children had saved him, their small hands glowing against his chest. He met the queen's gaze, not with defiance, but with quiet understanding. "You can end this," he said. "You don't have to destroy what you don't understand." The queen turned away, her voice soft but heavy. "All my life I ruled with fear. I believed strength was the only way to keep the stars from consuming us." She looked at her daughters, her golden eyes dim. "But you found another way." Alira stepped forward, placing a hand on her mother's arm. "Love is not weakness, Mother," she said gently. "It's what gives strength meaning." The queen closed her eyes, the words striking deeper than any weapon. For the first time, she saw what she had built, an empire of ashes, a crown of silence, a throne made of loneliness. The children looked at her again, their small voices echoing softly in her mind, not with words, but with feelings, warmth, forgiveness, connection. It broke her heart and healed it all at once. The queen turned to the horizon, where the first light of dawn shimmered through the clouds. The war had burned for centuries. But this sunrise was different. It carried no victory banners, no triumph songs, only peace. She raised her hand, sending a command through the network of her fleets. "All ships stand down." Her voice echoed across the stars, through every channel, to every Zirith world. "The war is over." In distant sectors, generals fell to their knees, weapons powered down, and the red glow of engines dimmed one by one. Across the galaxy, the fire finally rested. Ryan looked up, stunned. "You just ended an empire," he whispered. The queen gave a sad, tired smile. "No, human. I saved it." She turned back to the children, now standing on the glassed earth, light swirling beneath their feet. "They are the bridge," she said softly. "The bond that will outlive us all." She knelt before them, her voice trembling. "Forgive me, little ones, for what I have done." The smallest child, the one with Alira's eyes and Ryan's smile, reached out. Touching her crown, the light from their hand spread across the metal, repairing it, reshaping it into something new. No longer a crown of war, but one of peace. As the suns rose above the quiet world, the Queen looked at Ryan one last time. "There will be those who won't accept this," she said. "On both sides," Ryan nodded slowly. "Then we'll teach them." She tilted her head, her tone soft. "Together?" Ryan smiled. "Together." The Queen turned, her wings unfolding, no longer burning with fire, but glowing with soft light. She rose into the sky, her army following in silence. Not as conquerors, but as witnesses of change. Below her, Ryan held the children close, Elira and her sisters standing beside him. The wind carried the warmth of a new world across the barren land. The stars that once watched with fear now shimmered brighter. A new legend was being written across their light, the story of a human who taught an empire how to feel, and the children of two worlds who would one day lead both toward something greater, not through war, not through power, but through understanding. Ryan looked up at the sky, whispering softly, "Maybe this is what it means to be human." The dawn answered with silence, peaceful, eternal, alive, and so ended the age of fire, and began the age of light.